Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Salvatore Antonio. Oh my goodness. I know, this is the longest episode of my show. I could have talked to Salvatore forever. We have such an incredible conversation. They are currently starring in Mirvish Productions' The Lion King. They're Scar, everybody. Scar. One of the coolest characters, I think, ever, and the one that I think traumatized most of us millennials. Salvatore is an actor. He's from a little show, we're really proud of it here in Canada. Just a little wee show you may have heard of called Schitt's Creek. Just this little show we're super proud of here in little Canada. They're also an acting coach. Now, we talk about this in the episode, but I've taken a class with Salvatore. And it's funny, we've never actually met each other in person, but I took a virtual acting class with Salvatore, and they're one of the first coaches that gave me critical, and I'm going to use the word critical, but not in a negative way, constructive critical criticism on my acting technique, followed by practical steps on how to improve it. Oh my goodness. And I know I sound like flabbergasted, but I will never forget the lessons I learned in Salvatore's class. Ever. It was an incredible, incredible experience. They're an incredible coach. How many times can I say the word incredible? If you're in the Toronto area, go see The Lion King. Rave about Scar. I'm so excited for you to hear Salvatore's story. Please enjoy Salvatore Antonio.
That is a show to get a backstage tour for, because they gave me one here on Broadway, and I was just like, oh my God, it's like Alice in Wonderland back there. I'm like, what? Because they hang all the puppets in the air.
Oh my God.
So you're like walking backstage, and it's so filled, and then you look up and there's like elephants and the draft beat and the this. I was like, everyone should have the opportunity to like go backstage of The Lion King, because it's just as much of a show as what was on stage. It's quite magical. So I look forward to being able to do that for you.
My gosh, I cannot wait to talk to you about this. And I am strategically going to be airing your episode during your run. Duh. Because like, how can we not?
Why not? Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Well, it's a long run, so you got a lot of time.
yes.
Oh, bless.
Oh, I'm just so thrilled for you. I'm just so excited.
I really appreciate that.
Oh my gosh. Well, before I want to dig into that for sure, but
Yeah.
tell me your story. How in the world did you get into this crazy acting business and develop this amazing career you have?
Well, first off, thank you for calling it an amazing career, because that thing that we all have as actors is we are always looking for the next thing, and kind of rarely look back and feel, the pride and the sense of accomplishment that we should, because it's such a hustle. It's so hard to make a career out of this. So hearing something like that, it means a lot. How did I start? Oof, of course you were going to ask that question. I, from the moment that I learned what actor was, like that it was a potential profession, I knew I wanted to be one. I remember being about 6, maybe 7, and I was walking down a street with my mom, and there were these, like, this is going to sound like I was born in medieval times. I mean, close but not quite. But we there was like these street players or some like thing happening on a street corner, and there was a group gathered around, and we stopped and we watched, and I was just like, what am I watching? Like, what are those people doing? And she was like, oh, they're actors. And I was like, actors? Like, I was just like, oh, I'm going to be one. And I'm sure a part of her died as soon as I said that. But, but, but I was like, wow, that's the thing. And so that's my earliest memory of learning what it was. And I knew almost instantly that I wanted to be one. And then I just, I did everything I could to pursue it. So I'm one of these people who, I guess it's also quite boring, is I've always wanted to be an actor. I always knew I wanted to be one. And almost every decision I've made in my life in terms of education and experience has all been focused toward that one thing. And 30 something years into it, professionally, I'm like, I wonder what else I could have done had I not been so, headstrong, but also laser focused on this one profession. Like, maybe I could have cured cancer or something, like, or ended world hunger. We'll never know because I put all my eggs in that one basket. So, I started, I would always do like plays, like little skits and stuff like that with my neighborhood kids. We had a dead end at the end of our street, and I was always like kind of gathering kids and forcing roles upon them and like being very bossy and directing everybody and coming up with these scenarios. And so from a young age, and then, as I was in elementary school, I got my first role in a school play. I went to St. Edward's Catholic School, and I got cast as St. Edward in the school play, which was major. and that's when I was like, oh, I love this. Because I was a bit of a loser. I was a bit of a nerd up until that. And then something kind of changed in me, like with that attention, I guess, and that just all those people, kind of, patting me on the back afterwards and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is maybe something that'll change all that. So elementary school, and then when I had to go to high school, I was supposed to go to the Catholic high school that I was kind of like streamed into. But there was an arts high school called Unionville High School for the arts that you had to audition to get into. And that was my first audition ever. So I didn't even know what an audition was. I had never heard the term monologue. And I auditioned to get in, and I got in, and it was a 4-year program whereby you were in an arts intensive program within the school and then had to take the academic courses like regular high school students, but you were considered it was called Arts York, and you were in the Arts York stream. So there were courses that were, specific to the stream that you were in. There was acting, dance, vocal music, instrumental music, and visual art. And then there were the academics. And so that was my first real, I knew then, because there was a lot of work involved to do both the arts component and the academic component. It was double what the regular students had to do. So there was a lot of work, and I realized that, it wasn't always going to be fun. That's where I learned that. But, and that kind of weeded people out. Some people were just like, I want to just like play and have fun and whatever. But there was a lot of work involved. And so I did very well in that program because I put in the work, and I really wanted to get everything I could from it. And then I had heard about this post-secondary school called the National Theatre School of Canada. No one from my high school had ever got in. So it was kind of like this weird little, it was like, it was kind of like Oz. It was this like thing in this emerald city in the distance that everyone said was, at the time, the best school in the country to go to, but no one from that program had ever made it in. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get in. Bless the 18-year-old, the little 18-year-old ego. And I'm like, I'm going to get in. But the reality was I thought I would have to be older to get in. I had this idea that you had to like have kind of had like a gap year or something, or be in your 20s, and I was only 18. So my plan was to audition for the school, not get in, but I would find out what the audition was like, and then I would go to a university and kind of work on that stuff, and then audition again when I was older.
Hmm.
I honestly thought that was the plan. And then to my amazement, I got the first call back, and then the second call back, and then the third call back, and got into the school, which kind of blew my mind. And so I became the first student from that arts high school to get into the program, and many more from that school have gone on to go into the school, and some of whom I've taught now at the school. But that's how it, so really I mean, it's quite boring. I just always have known what I wanted to do, and then just been very, pragmatic about like, well, what are the steps? I didn't really buy into luck. That wasn't an idea that I'm not a gambler in any way, and to me that's a bit of a gamble to like hope or wish for luck. So I was like, what do I actually need to do? And then I just set about doing it. Sometimes it's a cost of other things. I didn't go out to a lot of parties. I didn't, I was doing community theater while I was in high school. So like, learn how to do it. And so that's what I would be doing after school or on weekends, was plays. So I had done maybe about 10 or 11 plays by the time I went to NTS. And then one thing leads to another, and then I graduated from the school and then just set about making it a profession. And here I am, still doing it somehow,
Something that struck me so hard there in your story is something that I've never heard from a first act actor before. And it was because I hear it a lot from, it's the idea that you had to tunnel vision focus, and to the expense of other things, right? And it's funny because I've made that comment about that's why a lot of doctors turned actors, a lot of lawyers turned actors, are kind of salivating, becoming desperate, being like, I need to find something else to do in our second act, is because the careers that we've chosen required such tunnel vision focus to become what we've become at the expense of everything else. And it's funny because, and naughty me, I never thought about that from the acting side, because it's like, yeah, of course, like I had to tunnel vision focus, so there's no way I could be an actor.
Sure.
But like, no, like you tunnel vision focused yourself to become an actor.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's funny how our brain just doesn't be, again, it's a career of whimsy, right? So how, like, it's a career of whimsy that doesn't require as much whatever. So it's not put up there as high on a pedestal as some of the other careers. But
Oh, yeah.
of course you had to tunnel vision focus yourself.
I'll never know, Janet. That's the answer to that, is because I'm going, that's the thing. When you see, I don't have a second act. I'm still in the first act.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I'm like, I will, and that's a thing that, as you start getting older, starts to seep in and haunt you a little bit. Especially when you ride the numerous waves of work, no work. Like, you just kind of go, God, what else could I have done? Because before you know it, you're in your mid-30s and you're like, am I going to go back to school? And for what? I have no other skills. They're like, it's something that, it's easier for someone to be like, oh, how great, you knew what you wanted to do so young, and then you tunneled through. I'm like, yeah, and I'm very grateful that it worked for the most part, but I am haunted a bit by not having any other act or any other skills that I could really see myself turning into a career. That's the truth of it, So it's not like I'm sitting here, at some point of arrival where I'm like, oh, it was all worth it. I knew it would be like this, and how great. Like, oh no, there have been some really like dark days. There have been salad days. There have been, a lot of just kind of like watching things pass you by, people going off and having families. Like most people that I went to high school with, they have children that are graduating university. Like, there are people like yourself who have done like really important things and have really like important skills and have, I heard that, I don't know if the viewers will hear it or if you'll leave that in, but there was a little, I don't know.
Comments.
It's, like it's all about affecting change and being, I think, of service to people who you don't know. I think that's the thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
we try to be in service to people that we do know, to our family, to our friends, but to kind of be in service to people who we won't meet past the experience that our job allows is something which, is not lost on me. I'm like, or a doctor, for example, someone comes in at kind of the worst point in their life, and you use your skills and your abilities and your compassion and everything that makes you what you are, and you fix that person, or you attempt to fix that person, and then you send them on their way. And they go on with their life. And if everything works out beautifully, you never see them again because they never need you again. But you've done something to that person and off they go. And I feel on another level, let's not discuss levels of importance because then someone ends up getting offended somewhere. But my thing is, I'm like, I do something in a show that I may feel ha about, but someone somewhere that I will never meet is sitting in the dark in their living room watching something, and they may see something reflected back to them that makes them feel less alone or less weird or less othered, and something shifts in them. I will never know that it did that to them, and I may never meet them. And then we take it to the live theater part of it all, and that circle is just one that has been an addiction all my life. For whatever TV and film I do, it's always to fund my theater habit because I need to and my team knows this. Every once in a while, I need to do a play to keep me sane, to kind of recalibrate and ground myself again in why I love doing this, because it's a back and forth and you don't know who's responsible for what. The audience is breathing, reacting, giving back to you. Every shift in breath, applause is great, but you can feel them, see them, hear them. You're not acting into a void. And that feeds you. That informs your performance. Even if we're playing a fourth wall, I can hear when seats are shifting, and that does something. I'm like, are they bored or are they uncomfortable? Which or you hear people sniveling. And you're just like, and it makes its way in, and it's just, how did I get on this? It's about affecting people.
I love it.
That's what it comes down to. So, oh my God, I'm a tangent king. So good luck with this.
No, it's great.
Can you remember how we got onto something?
Well, no. Oh, 100% I do. Because you got to the point that I was like, if he starts being like, oh, other jobs are more important than storytelling, which is I was about to say the oldest career of all time, but I think that's
one of them,
prostitution.
yeah.
But
one of them, yeah. Right alongside it.
It's legacy building, right? There's nothing more, and I could wax on and on and on about the funding of the arts and how critical it is and blah blah blah. But there is nothing more important than storytelling and storytellers, because even in my job, yeah, sure, I have doctor skills, but I'm a way better skilled doctor because of my acting training to tell stories and to
100%.
Impact other people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was like, it's so what you do impacts people in ways that people don't even, like you're saying, they don't even know.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair. Yeah. I think both of us in this conversation are way too good at somehow minimizing the importance of what we may do, and I think that's a very Canadian trait of us to be like, yeah, but there's other people doing other things. But yes, in the end, what it comes down to is connecting with other people, and what does connecting mean, right? I talk about this all the time when I'm training actors, is to be like, it's kind of like reaching out, roots underneath everything, all our socioeconomic differences, cultural, religious, blah, 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 political, all that stuff, reaching roots underneath that all to find the other roots and kind of grab onto each other and go, we are not alone. We are not alone. Somebody else has grieved. Somebody else has lost. Somebody else has felt joy. Somebody, like, it's kind of like a gentle tap on the shoulder to a stranger to be like, I get it. I see you, I get it. And I reflect you back to you. And in that you feel less alone, less alienated. And how many times have we sat watching a performance and kind of gone, oh, that ugly cry that person did, with that snot bubble coming out of their nose makes me feel a lot better about the fact that I don't cry Swarovski crystals out of my eye. And you're like, people's faces contort, and we do have the ugly cries. It's real. Like, we just kind of feel better about ourselves, even in the negative,
Yeah.
Someone said somewhere that that acting was the aspirin for society, that it takes their pain away because we play out their pain for them. And in that, it kind of lessens it a bit. And I wish I remembered, I don't know if I read that or if someone said it, but it kind of stuck in my head where I went, oh, that's the service. It's not like we're solving all the world's issues, but what does an aspirin do? It takes the pain away for a little bit. And in that time, you can focus on something else. Because I feel like when people feel alone, that's all they can focus on is their isolation. I feel like when people are in pain, whether that's physical or emotional, that's all they can focus on. And sometimes getting lost in someone else going through it, even if it's dramatized, kind of gives you a break from your experience. And in that, you can kind of settle a bit. Yeah. I think, you know what, it is important. You're right, Jen. It is important.
Yeah. Well, and I think the only way we can build empathy as a society is through hearing the stories of others, whether they're from the other or being dramatized by someone telling out the story. There's literally, I don't know of any other way we can develop empathy. Like,
I'm pressed to find something, another way.
It's so important. What we do like how else?
Yeah. No. Yeah. You're onto something for sure.
I am very curious. I love asking people who went to theater school, you graduate, and then what? Like, did you feel like you were ready to be like, now I will be the actor? Like, how do you build a career once you're finished?
It's a great question. And it's also a bit hard to remember because I graduated in 1998.
I just saw the funniest T-shirt that reminded me. It was like, "Be nice to me, I'm slow. I'm from the 1900s."
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, so it was a while ago, right? But I remember as mine was a 3-year program at NTS, and by the time we were midway through third year, which was all a performance year, all we did was plays throughout that year, I was like, okay, enough of this. Like, I want to get out. I want to get away from these people, God love them. But I was like, had enough of this. I've had enough of like people like tearing apart the fiber of who I am and what I do and how I do it. I'm like, good, bad, ugly. I just want to get out there and kind of like throw it against a wall and see what sticks, if anything. But I was like, I was busting to get out. So, it was my early 20s. So like, there's also that where you're kind of like, the world is my oyster type thing. And there wasn't as much fear as there was excitement at that point, because all everyone talked about is how hard it is and how, it's going to be a long time before you can do what you actually want to do. And you're going to have to just say yes to a whole bunch of things you don't want to be doing. And I heard all of it and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I didn't think that I was going to walk out ever. I didn't think I was going to walk out and step out onto a center stage and be like, here we go. I was like, okay, whatever it is that I need to do, I just want to set about doing it, like actually doing it, not talking about it, not hearing about somebody else's experience of what it was like 20 years ago or whatever. but I just want to try. I want to see. And so the first thing I had to do was kind of figure out for myself what my personal mandate was going to be with my career before it even existed. Does that make sense? I wanted to figure out, well, what kind of work do I actually want to do? Rather than follow what has kind of been laid out. My school, for example, at that time, back in the mid-90s to late 90s, was very much an on-ramp to the festivals. They were all the examples that were used were like, one day when you're at the Shaw, one day when you're at the Stratford Festival, because, it was classical training, and we had so many alumni who were in those festivals who were formidable, talent in the Canadian theater world. But very early on, like when I had no experience in either Shaw or Shakespeare, just to name two of the classical bookends, until I was at the school, and I was like, meh. I was like, I really hate Shaw now that I've tried it. I'm like, I have zero interest in that. And then Shakespeare, I was like, I had people in my class who made it come alive almost effortlessly. And I was like, I'm not that person. Like, it was almost like another language to me. And like, while I learned enough skills to be able to get it up on its feet, I didn't feel a guttural connection to it. And I also felt weird about admitting that at that time, because I felt it and I was like, to say this might be equated with me not being up to the task. And I wasn't ready at that point to kind of admit that. But I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do Shakespeare for 9 months in the pork capital of Ontario. Oh my God. All the Stratford alumni are just going to kill me now. They're like, he called Stratford what? But I mean, it is the pork capital of Ontario. If anyone who's gone there in the summer smelled it, Oh my God, I'm out of control. I'm sorry. It's already begun. You didn't think you could bridle me for this conversation, did you? You trained with me. No, that's like,
I did not want anywhere near bridal.
Once I get going. Ooh. Anyway. But I was like, I don't want to do that. And I definitely don't want to do Shaw, which I don't like the stuff. But those seem like the only two theatrical options. I was like, I want to originate roles. I don't want to be the 7 billionth Hamlet. And I'm not, just so we're clear, I'm not undervaluing what those things are worth and like how much skill it takes to do those things properly. The skill it takes to do Shaw beautifully and to bring Shakespeare alive. Let me be super clear about that. But I was like, I don't want to follow in footsteps. I want to be originating roles. I want to be the first blank that has tried out so that I can actually just play and not be haunted by other people's interpretations of things. And so the only way that I had available to do that was either to create my own work or do new works or do TV and film, where if you look at it that way, you are 9 times out of 10 originating a role. The role of Dr. Janet doesn't exist until you get cast, and then you are the first and usually the last Dr. Janet to ever play that role. So when you think of it that way, I was just like, that's what I want to do. And so I, unlike a lot of people in my class, did not want to audition for the festivals. I was like, I'm good, thanks. And so while a lot of people went to the festivals and did amazing things, and some of them are still there and they are now stalwarts of the theater there and like stars, I was like, I'm going to go do some TV. And that meant starting at the bottom, doing commercials, doing one-liners, and working my way up because I didn't have a resume in that. And just kind of, slowly building the work from the bottom up. I did not step out into a lead role. I stepped out into my first credit on IMDb is pizza delivery boy on Goosebumps.
Nice.
Yeah. Really?
That
The show was great.
Yes, it was great, but I mean, just to be, yes, absolutely. And it has a special place in a lot of people's hearts. But I played pizza delivery boy in one episode. I didn't even have a name.
I was girl number 2. I'm still girl number 2.
No, you're not. Well, listen, we are all girl number 2 inside. You know what I mean? We are all girl number 2 inside. I will forever be pizza delivery boy inside. You know what I mean? Because I'm going, when you start out that way and you know what it feels like to be in the smallest part of the trailer, you know, like smaller than a prison cell, let's be clear here. And, you know, where they just fit you in at the end of the day and you get 2 takes and that's it. And you're like, when that's the way that you come up, it informs who you are when you become the lead or when you become number 1 on the call sheet. And somebody comes in, you're like, oh, you're playing lab tech today. Like it changes, it informs who you are as someone who takes up more space in the process. Hopefully. Because everyone just wants to be seen. Everyone, you know, no one wants to remain pizza delivery boy or girl number 2. You know, like everybody's doing it to kind of move up and get bigger and just get more playtime. Let's call it what it is. I just want more time to play. And so you have to work your way up. Very few of us get out and end up in lead roles. Yes, it happens. But again, that's luck meeting opportunity, which is something that you can't bank on. You can hope for it, you can pray for it, but you cannot bank on it. If you do, you're going to be disappointed time and time again. So my thing is, get in there, identify what the playing field is, and just get in there. You know, get like this career is like a ladder. And you go up 3 rungs and come down 5 and then go back to the first one and then climb your way up but just stay on the ladder. Get on the ladder, number 1. And be okay with the first rung. You know, but look up. Don't look down and be like, oh, I'm stuck on the first rung. Look up. And then get up and you'll come down and get up, but stay on the ladder. That's the only thing. Makes me a bit emotional. That's the only thing, the only advice I could give to someone, because there have been so many highs and lows. Now's a great time, you know, because I could sit there and like, I'm doing this show and whatever, and I've won an award. Like 30 years into my career, just so we're clear, I've won my first award. So it's like, it means something different than if it had just, I'm like, I really appreciate it. But I'm also going like, don't look at me now. Now is where we kind of build a mythology about what a career is or what it should be. The reality is, you know what I mean? Like no one's looking at you when you're playing girl number 2 and have 3 jobs and having to go audition for things that you'd rather not do, but you have to, like no one's looking at you and asking your views on acting at that point. They start asking it now. And I'm going, well, I'm going to point you to the beginning and go, you start where you need to start and you stay in it and you make sure you have good people around you who you can release that frustration with, but who you can also celebrate with. People who you're not afraid are going to, you know, punish you for your success, but like get on that ladder. That's my advice. Just get on the ladder. Doesn't matter where. Be okay with it. Aspire to more, absolutely. But just get on the ladder and stay on the ladder and know that, especially in Canada, you are going to go up and down dramatically and more than once be like, how am I back here again? I'll just be like, well, I am. And if this is the most overused thing that people say about acting, if there's something else that you can do that will make you happy, go do it. Absolutely go do it. And I'll tell you this right now, if there was, I would have taken that road. I would have got off that ladder many times. Many, many times. I almost quit acting in 2019. I had not worked for 2.5 years. And I mean, not a single gig. I was with one of the best agents in the city, just so we're clear. So it wasn't a matter of representation. I have worked with all the casting directors in Toronto more than once. So it's not a matter of not being known within the community. I had auditions. I was doing these auditions. Nothing was landing.
Hmm.
And that's about 25 years into my career.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, the jig is up. I can't book anything. Like, and you know, I was auditioning for all sizes of roles at that point because I was like, I just need to work. 2.5 years without a single booking. And I was like, I have to leave. Like, it started affecting my mental health. I felt betrayed. I felt saddened. I felt lost because I was like, you know, at that point I was like, I'm in my early 40s and I've been disinvited. I'm out here, and how long am I going to be looking in on the party that I was once a part of? But I'm out here on the stoop looking in, going, no one wants me in there. And I was like, am I going to normalize this? Am I going to like just identify myself as that guy or go do something else? And so I made the decision that I was going to leave acting. Oh, you're going to get a good story from me, Janet. In the depths of my despair, one night was Googling jobs that are fail-proof, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was just like, what is out there where we don't have these ups and downs? And I wish I remember what was on that list, because I just kept going like, can't do that, don't have the skills for that, don't have the skills for like, I just can't do, like, I was like, oh my God, I have no skills. And then on that list was funeral director. And I did what you're trying to cover up right now, which is kind of like, okay. But I had that reaction. I was like, I kind of laughed, and then I went, well, I can't like cut off dead bodies. I was ignorant of what a funeral director does, and I equated it with a mortician. In my ignorance, I was like, well, there's no way I could do that. But then I was just like, Google, what does a funeral director do? And I realized that it was a completely different thing, that it had to do with grief counseling and organizing and sales, and doing minor touch-ups on a corpse before viewings. This is getting very morbid very quickly, but whatever. And I was like, well, I could do that. So I was like, then looked up what the training was. And I was like, oh God, like 2 terms at basically a community college, and then you could get certified. And I was like, people are always going to be dying. I mean, we were at that point, Janet. I was like, people are always going to be dying. So, and I still want to be of service to people. I was like, help people navigate grief, to like take care of their loved ones and take care of the living. And I was like, that's something that I could get into. I've always been someone who loves ritual and ceremony and whatever, and has a real appreciation for like cultures and world religions and stuff like that. And I was like, I could be of use that way. And the more I thought about it, the more I looked into it, I was like, yes. And right beside it was, people are going to laugh their ass off when you tell them this. But then I was immediately like, am I allowed to swear on this?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
And then I was like, who fucking cares what people like? I'm like, you know, like, laugh at me right now that like at the age of 40, whatever, I am like out of a job all of a sudden. I was like, yeah, so I literally signed up for funeral director school, put down a deposit, and was ready to start in September of that year. And then I took a meeting with my agent. We sat on her back patio, and with tears, I said to her, I'm done. And she cried and I cried, and she was like, I'm sorry, I feel like I failed. I'm like, you have not failed me. No one's failed anybody. It's just, it has run out. And I'm not going to go to 3 years without a single job after working quite consistently for so long. I just can't do it. I was like, I need to do something, or I will like just turn in on myself and consume myself and fall apart and be of no use to anybody. So that was the plan. I said, as of September, I'm done. And I mean done. It will be my sole focus. and I will not be taking auditions. I will not, like, I'm going to make this work and I'm going to be great at it. And she was like, I'm sure you will. It's just like, I think you're so talented and it's sad to see. I said, whatever, doesn't mean anything anymore. Like light under a bushel is not of use. And I feel like, yeah, I may have had a light and it's still alive in me, but there is a bushel over it. You don't have opportunity. You can't do what you love. I was like, what's the point? And so I just had to shift it. And that's what I did. I was like, I signed up. I was ready to quit. I put in my deposit. And then, you know how the story is going to go. August, out of nowhere, one of the billion self-tapes that I had sent out where nothing had come back, I booked a series for the CW off of one self-tape. No callback, no chem read, nothing. Just off of one of the gajillion self-tapes that had gone out. And it had gone out almost a month before. So much so that when my agent called to say, you're not going to believe this, but you booked whatever, I didn't know which one she was talking about. I was like, sorry, what one was that again? She had to explain. I was like, yeah, okay, I vaguely remember. I'm sorry, what? Like, there's no callback or anything? And then before I knew it, everything had changed. All of a sudden, from like nothing to something. I was going to have a role that I could live with that was moving me to Montreal for 6 months to shoot this series. And that was at the beginning of the pandemic. So while everybody else stopped working, all my colleagues and friends around me who had been working steadily, everything shut down. That's when I began to work again. And we were one of the only productions that were shooting full mask protocols and everything, like bi-weekly testing. Like it was crazy to shoot in that. But I mean, like I was shooting my first gig in almost 3 years while everything else was shutting down. And I thought there is a poetic justice to this. I'm like, the gig is up for so many other people because of what's going on in the world. And this is when it comes back alive for me. But I just need to be reminded again, maybe that marks that second chapter for me, was that. I was like, maybe that's, I never thought of it that way, but I was like, yeah, that was it. Because I thought, oh, you need to learn this lesson again, that you never know. You never know what you're a week away from in this business. Your job is to keep putting yourself out there, but you have no idea what discussions are happening. I had no idea that while I was sitting there putting a deposit in on funeral director school, that somewhere in Los Angeles, there were producers and a network having discussions about a self-tape that I had sent and that felt confident enough booking me for a series regular role on it. Would never have known that. And so, and that kind of thing just humbles you. It just kind of, it brings you to your knees and makes you go, okay, like something somewhere is taking care of me and it is worth something. But like, God, I don't ever want to hit that place again, but I'm equipped now. And I'm like, and I'm still with the same agent. She knows. I was like, it's a lovely anecdote now. It's a funny little story. Remember that time when Salvatore was going to quit acting and go become a funeral director? I'm like, but to me, I'm like, I will do it again. I will do it again. That wasn't a tactic. It wasn't a ploy. If I'm ejected again for that, ejected is such a dramatic word. I was not ejected from anything. I just didn't get a job, please. Do you know what I mean? But I was like, if I know I need to be useful. I've identified something else that I could do, that I could be passionate about. And I'm like, now it's not like, oh, what will I do? I'm like, no, if I go back into a dead winter of work, where like, and by winter, I mean like years of not booking anything, I will not panic. I will feel sad. I will feel angry. I'll feel all those things, but I will just get to work on something else. That's what I learned from that lesson. And I feel like, some people are like, don't have a plan B. And I'm like, that's bullshit. I was like, like that's such a romanticized way of looking at it. I'm going, I'm a realist, and I'm just like, the world that we live in requires as many safety nets around us as possible because it's friggin' hard out there. And to say that actors don't have a plan B, I'm like, just leads to panic and anxiety, and also then feeling guilty for trying to take care of yourself in the drought. And I'm going, fuck that. Have plan B, C, and D. Do what you need to build a network around yourself of off-ramps if this is making you sick. You know, because I'm like, let's just stop romanticizing what it is to be an actor and go, you can only work if someone gives you the job or if you create it for yourself. If those things can't happen for whatever reason, why should you sit there and fall apart over that? Don't define yourself by the booking. You know what I mean? Like, take care of yourself. Have all the plans you need. So I have a plan B now for the first time in my life. And I hope I never have to do it. But if I do, I'm going to be really good at it, is kind of like the mindset that I'm in. But all that just means is that I'm really grateful that right now I'm back on plan A and able to do that work. And it just means that much more to me because I know what it felt like. And I will never forget what it felt like to be left out in the cold and going, God, that's all I want to do. That's all I want to do. Every time I drove by, you know, the cones on the street, drove by like the honey wagons and the stuff, it was just like it was like a dagger twisting in my gut. I was like, there are people who are working and I'm driving by to like nothing, or like, you know, like going to see friends on stage and being like, oh my God, it's right there. And I just can't get in. Like, I will never forget what that feeling is. And that, I'm glad that those 2.5 years happened to me because I feel like I needed a reset at that time to disabuse myself of any cockiness or any sense of entitlement or any sense of, yeah, well, of course I'm going to keep working. Work begets work. No, I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that anymore. And I'm like, when you are able to work whatever that is, you must be so appreciative of it. And I don't ever want to get jaded, you know, because I feel like in the times where there was one gig after another, it's very easy to become jaded and then just start complaining about this, that, and the other. I think it's our nature. Because you're just like, well, it's another gig, it's another whatever. And I'm like, that changed me. Now I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I'm actually doing the thing. And for me being here, there are at least 10 other people who are not here, who wanted this as much as I did, and they are not here. They're having to do other things. And I just kind of go, do your work, do it to the best of your ability, and really be present in what you're doing. Don't call it in. Don't call it in. It's too precious. There's just too many of us and too little of those jobs. You know? Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's just, it's a like, I was supposed to say beautiful story, but like beautiful and like, well, it is, you know. I think it's a story that I really thank you for telling me. Like it's such a real story, and I think we, like you were saying, you said it so perfectly about like how we glamorize this industry, and for good reason. I mean, it's literally glamorous, but I think I really like the idea, and I live it as well too. I should say I don't like when people say you have to be all in on acting, all in. You can't, and I can understand why they say it. You know, like you can't have your feet in different pots or buckets, otherwise you're going to be spread too thin.
Right.
And you need to be all in. And I agree with you. Like, we live in a world where that is not possible for the vast majority of people.
Yeah, it's just not possible.
It's almost insulting.
I agree with you. That's exactly the word. I think it is insulting. And I think it puts even more stress and more pressure on artists to kind of like buy into this magical world where you can just be an artist. I'm like, you know what? I'd love to be all in, as would you. You know, as with the clients who I teach and coach, I would love to be all in. But the fact of the matter is that there are other things to attend to. I don't live in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, we have to take care of ailing relatives. We have to make rent. We have to navigate heartbreak. There's so many things that we have to do to take care of our own health. Hello. That it's like, I don't have the luxury to be all in. And yes, it is insulting. And so if this conversation can make someone feel better about the catering gig that they have to do, you know, and not feel like a chump because I have to go do my catering gig. No, you have to do your catering gig, and good for you for like doing what you need to kind of support this habit, which is what acting is, that you want to turn into a career. Like, go do it, and don't do it with your tail between your legs. Be a really good caterer for those 4 hours. You know what I mean? Like, and be proud of what you do. Like, yeah, it's a new time, and I just feel like a lot of the teachers that we would have had come from a time perhaps where the romanticism of it all was passed on, and then people just kept passing that along and being like, "Oh, life in the theater." Oh, yeah. And I'm like, there's just too much now. Everything's multiplied. There's less opportunities. Even though there's more projects, because the same people keep getting the work, and the same, casting keeps going to tried and true choices. Like, everyone, it's become more expensive to make a mistake. What it is. It's become more expensive to cast the wrong person, or to gamble on somebody, or to give someone brand new a chance. It's too expensive. And everybody in the process is auditioning for somebody else. Every single person in the process is trying to prove that they're good at what they do. And the way that most people do it in this industry is by using people who are proven and tried and true. But I'm like, make no mistake, like, people like going us and them with casting. I'm like, well, casting is also answering to a production, who is answering to a network or a producer. Like, everybody has someone above them. Even the networks are like answering to a public who now can like click off of something the second they don't like it. You know what I mean? Like, we're in a new time, and everybody's desperately holding on to their relevance and proving their ability. And I feel like we need to humanize all the departments and kind of go, everyone's doing the best they can given the pressures on them. But the fact is, we all feel expendable. Like, we all feel expendable, and we are kind of pathologizing that feeling and making it part of our identities, and just becoming more like blinders onto that other option. Just be like, no, don't look there. Go to the same person. So like, when you start becoming the person who's a bit of a go-to, you have to remember that it's like, it wasn't always that way. And I'm like, I was the person who was being like, give me a shot, and someone did. And you don't forget that. And so I just think if we're just a bit kinder with each other at every step in the process, that we'll all actually do better work. Like, but we need to humanize all those positions. We need, like, casting needs to humanize the actors again. Actors need to humanize casting. Like, people need to actually see the person past the slot that they're filling and just go, I'm going to do whatever I can to allow for you to do the best work you can, and to declare yourself in the attempt. That's all I can give you. Right? But like, what can I do? Maybe fucking smile. Right? Maybe don't snarl at the person who's standing in front of you, or look down at their resume instead of at them. Maybe just look at a person and just smile, and it can do wonders, and you can get a better audition out of them. Same way with actors, actually look at the casting person who's talking to you. And be like, I get it. I'm like the 40th person you've seen. Let me try and make this better. Like, I don't know. I'm talking as if we're getting into a room. I haven't been in a room since 2020.
I think that's wonderful, though. I think, it's funny. I just had a casting director interview a couple of days ago, and we were saying she's saying the same thing. And we were talking about how she works so hard as Andrea Kenyon. She works so hard on her breakdowns, like so hard. She's like, I hire writers for breakdowns because I just don't want to put actors in a box. I want to have the best breakdown possible so they can do the best work possible. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so kind and so nice and wonderful. And she's like, why don't actors believe that all we want to do is get you hired? She's like, I don't understand. It's so crazy. Like, it makes me look good when you get hired.
Of course. Like, did either of you come up with a theory as to why that is? Why we don't do that?
I wonder if it is because, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a COVID baby actor. I had my very first in-person callback on last Tuesday.
Wow.
Ever, right? And so
Wow.
there are no humans involved. Hence why I'm trying to do this damn podcast. But like, was it like that before? Because now it's awful. Like, we don't get any feedback. We send it to the ether. We're resentful. We're like, fuck you. Away the tape goes. I hate this. I get an audition. My very first reaction is, God damn it.
Yes. I'm glad you're saying that. Again, because we shouldn't feel guilty about that. We should, that is the reaction. I open a PDF and I'm like, so many lines. Like, here we go with the gathering the troops and the clearing of the schedule and the moving of the furniture and the ding dong and and for what? Like, there will be no feedback. Like, I can't guarantee that they'll make it past watching 14 seconds of because again, reality. The reality is that all those things can be true, right? When you open up something, when I started, but like when I did start auditioning professionally, like in the early to mid 1990s, you went in a room and you looked at the call sheet with the times or the whatever, and you saw that there were maybe 10 people going in for your role. And you were like, okay, and that kind of did something to you. That energized. I have a shot in 10. Yeah, a day. Maybe there was a second day of casting and there was another, like, who knows? But I'm saying, like, I would just be like, there was something about it which was finite. And that kind of made you go, bring it. Like, really bring it. Really engage. You actually have a shot. And then you also had to sit in a waiting room where a lot of your competition, who were colleagues and friends, like after years and years of seeing people in your category, you become friends with them or you ignore them. I know all the guys in my category. And they're all great actors. And it literally is, oh, this one's your one, this one's your, like, we all, you know what I mean? And then you would go into a room and you would actually see the casting director and there was an energy exchange. If you were awkward, that was going to inform the audition. If they were in a bad mood, that, like, there was a back and forth. So it wasn't like, I don't want to paint a picture where like, oh, those were the good old days. Because it wasn't necessarily that. It's just you were actually dealing with what you were getting. That's the only thing I'm saying here. Because I also hated some of those in-person auditions. Because if someone wasn't kind or giving of their energy, it could also throw you. You know, there are casting directors who really, hunker down and just, look at a monitor and like give very little to, maybe because that's what they need to do in order to like keep a proper distance to keep healthy for themselves. I don't know. But I'm going, it wasn't always like you went in and there were high fives and like, how are you doing? Good, great. Let's talk about the role. It wasn't that. There were some who were that, but there were others who weren't. And you dreaded going in for some of them and looked forward to going in for others. But again, I don't want to romanticize that period. But the truth of the matter is you were dealing with real people and you were seeing them.
Yeah.
And so there are people who have that as a memory, as an experience, who really resent where we're at now because we've actually lost relationships. You are maybe just discovering them now, coming out of the void into in-person. But we have lost relationships where I'm like, I haven't seen so-and-so in going on 5 years. I audition for them. I send them self-tapes, but I don't hear anything back. It's either a booking or nothing. I don't even get notes back. I don't know about you, but like, I don't get any feedback at all.
Never.
So you're literally like, I have no idea if this is something that was, because in the room, you know, the good ones, you do something and they would be in the room and they'd be like, okay, that was your nervous take. Go again. Just like throw it away, Salvatore. You're hitting everything too hard. Just throw it away, make it conversation. They would give you a direction, you go again. And then like, so there was some work happening. Now it's like, I don't even know, the not knowing if someone's even watching it. And I know casting says we watch everything. I'm going, but the reality is, and I don't fault them for this, the reality is you can't watch 100 submissions all the way through. That's a whole other full-time job. I don't expect them to be able to do, just so we're clear. I'm going like, that's asking a lot. Yeah. You know, because like the democracy of auditioning now means that so many more people can submit, but you still have the one person or the two people who have to sort through all that. There's not enough hours in the day. And these people also need their private lives. They also need to be the son who's taking care of the ailing, you know what I mean? Like, or the partner or the person dealing with their own health. So like, this is what I say, we have to humanize each other, right? Like, it's very easy to get caught up in the resentment, but I'm like, the fact of the matter is something happened globally and something shifted and it affected us all. Some people lost people because of COVID, like literally lost loved ones. Other people died themselves. Like something happened and it went gak. And we are all kind of still sliding down that thing, being like, you know, and also mourning, being like, will it ever be what it was? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
You know, I have friends that are casting directors. And, you know, when we talk socially about it, the answer is no, it will never be what it was, because we now know that it doesn't need to be. And when it comes down to money, the people in the positions of doling out the money know that we can do it distantly.
Yeah.
So why would you pay for a room? Why would you, like, you know what I mean? Like, so we all are kind of like, I doubt that casting directors really enjoy like not having any contact with actors and just looking at tape after tape after tape of people hitting the primary notes of something without any nuance or dynamics. Like, can you imagine how boring that must be?
And they've lost the relationship with you as well, too.
Exactly. Like, at least you go, well, he's the shoot the shit, maybe crack a joke, make someone laugh, like, you know, or move them in the room. There's nothing like being in, I was a reader for 2 years when I got out of theater school. I asked to be a reader. I was like, I need to see what people are doing, because we didn't really have TV film training at my school. We had a week of it at the end of the third year, and that wasn't enough, considering that's what I wanted to do. So I said to my agent at the time, I said, get me in the room. Like, I want to see people do it, because that's how I'm going to learn. And so I got a job, unpaid at first, as a reader for some casting directors who I won't name. And I got to sit in sessions as the reader, and I watched 100 people. You know what I mean? Like, novices through to like seasoned vets audition. And so as I was reading, I was watching what they were doing. And that's how I learned how to audition for camera. I didn't take a class on it. I learned by watching it. I was like, why did that work? And I'd break it down in my head really quickly before the next person came in. And I was like, oh, because they kept their thought process in that. I had to come up with a way. And I was like, but I would see, like, you would like to be in the room when someone lifts it off the page and pushes some blood through those words, and you forget that it was ever written down. It's a thing that you all feel in the room, or that we all felt in the room. And that person would leave, and everyone from the camera op to, you know, the jaded casting director to the reader just kind of looks at each other and goes, wow. Yeah, they're obviously the one. Because like, we all just got transported and we've heard the thing 15 times. That's lost. We're not in the room, so you don't feel that thing. You can see a great performance on a self-tape, but it's hidden behind the screen. Like, and so you digest it like we digest filmed medium in our living rooms with a distance and with a lack of investment. We can do other things. We can be on our phone. We can think about other, like, we don't have to be present with it. So the wave never hits us. The wave never hits them anymore. You have to
live
really
theater. Yeah.
It is live theater.
Fuck.
And yeah, it's so it will never be what it was. It's going to be something else. I still think the fact that you got into a room means that things are changing. So it's like it will continue to morph. I'm not going to say we need to be patient because I think everyone's tired of being patient. But we just have to accept that, like, stay on the ladder, hang on, do what you can, but also don't beat yourself up if you get really fucking tired.
Mm.
Don't beat yourself up for feeling depleted by the technology of it all. Because it is depleting.
Yeah.
And you have to, like, we'll make the best of it. And I'm like, shut up. We don't all have like a set up studio at our disposal that we can just step into and a reader who's always available. Like, we have to scramble to do all these things. And thankfully, because of even changes that have happened very recently in terms of actors' guidelines for auditions, whereby we're not doing 24-hour turnarounds anymore with 10 pages of sides, that's movement, that's progress, and that's humanizing the process. Someone somewhere is going, we're not getting the best out of these people, because the only people who can give it their all in 24 hours, learn it, find someone to operate a camera, get rid of their kid, like this, that, and the other, cancel the doctor's appointment that they've been waiting for 2 months, like are people who live in some weird, like, castle on a hill. Everyone else, like, so by the time you get that audition 24 hours later for an unreasonable amount of pages, I'm like, you're getting someone who's, it's held together by masking tape. And what you're getting is a lot of fumes, primary color readings of stuff, people playing types rather than humans. You're not getting good work from people because you're not humanizing what their job is. You know, so if casting others us and goes, well, that's their job is to audition, figure it out. That's not helping them. You can say that, but is it going to get you better work? No. And if we go, you know, fuck them for the 24-hour thing, when really it's the fact that the producers or the production company has only given them the script and the sides that they want or whatever in 24 hours. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, we're getting back to the original point, which is going, what we do as storytellers is reflect humans to other humans to keep it all human. And the problem is that now everything we do is through technology. And we have to kind of go, this is an impediment to connection. So how are we going to deal with that impediment? We can choose not to engage. We can say, I'm not doing a self-tape. That's your prerogative. And again, if that's what you need to do to save your sanity, then do it. But you have the choice to say no. But if you're going to do it, how are you going to recalibrate? How are you going to change that experience for yourself so you can find some joy in it? I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. But I do believe that change is coming. I have given up on the experience that I started out in. I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, you know, well, in the good old days, I'm like, yeah, that happened. How great that I had that experience. Here I am talking to someone who's never had that experience. Right? And I'm going, what are we going to do? If anything, it's kind of equalized us all. You're trying to figure out what to do, and so am I. I'm like, how are we going to make this work? And how are we going to show up and move somebody across the screen? And that just means we have to just keep showing up to what is the point of it all.
Yeah. It's coming back to, like you were saying right at the very beginning when you were ejected from theater school, released to theater school. What was your mission statement, right? Like, what do I want to do?
That personal mandate.
Mandate.
That's what I call it, right? was that I wanted to originate roles and I wanted to create a spot on the shelf that wasn't already occupied by somebody else. Good, bad, or ugly. And it wasn't because I thought I was great or whatever, but I just thought we don't have a Salvatore Antonio yet. That's just that's the only fact that there is. It doesn't exist. We have Meryl, we have Denzel. We don't have a Salvatore Antonio yet. And all I ever wanted to see when I was just a viewer, sitting at home with my hand in a bag of ketchup chips, you know what I mean? Like watching the TV, was to see like myself or someone like me come onto the screen and go, oh God, I'm not a freak. Right? Like someone, there's an actor who kind of looks like me and kind of has my weird intonations and, you know, is a bit left of center. Like, and to just go, like, there's, you know, there's a place for everybody, but you have to champion yourself in order to take up that space. And so if we keep trying to be reasonable facsimiles of actors who are singular and doing what they do the way they do it best, then we are not championing ourselves. We are cheating ourselves out of the declaration of what our points of view are, what our passion is, what our worldview is, how our experience informs our take on a line. Like, you're so not boring. That's the thing I always try to say to my students, is just going like, if I just ask you to show me how you do your morning ablutions, you know what I mean? Like how you brush your teeth, how you wash your face. Like, what do you do first thing in the morning looking in that bathroom mirror? I just ask you to be true to the way you do that. It is already different from the way I do mine. And in that, I find it interesting. I'm like, you leave the water running while you brush your teeth? Weird. Weird equals interesting. I'm like, but if you try to brush your teeth in the morning how you think everybody does, we're not getting that declaration. We're getting a reasonable facsimile of what you think the general consensus is. And the thing with general is, it's boring. It doesn't allow people to see the intricacies of how they do things. And so I just think, you know, like we have to get behind ourselves. And so my personal mandate was to be like, before I decide that that there is no place for me, that no one cares about my opinion or my passion, you first have to declare it in your work. You have to come at it from what you know and have that inform your take, your interpretation, before you can know that it actually doesn't work. And as soon as I stopped trying to be somebody else, I was like, oh, okay. One, this is not as exhausting. It's actually invigorating. But two, I'm not worried about being found out anymore, which was so exhausting. I always thought this version that I'm doing is going to run out. And then the reality going to creep through and they're going to be like, so to just be like, well, fuck that. This is how I do this. Once I started doing that, and this is the conversation I have to keep having with myself, just so we're clear. It's not like I arrived at that and then I stopped ever trying to be somebody else. I'm still stealing other people's things and trying to do things the way that person did it. Like, you know what I mean? But we always have to come back to, you are the agent of your circle. You are the thing in the center of the circle of everything that you're creating. And so you have to, one, identify who and what that is, warts and all, and stop trying to play the glossy version of yourself. You have to just go, a snot bubble does come out of my nose when I actually cry. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to take that off the table because I think that when people cry, they should look pretty or blah, 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 blah. So that was my personal mandate, was to just be like, and you know, it was a bit punk at the time. I was like, I'm going to fucking originate. I'm going to originate roles. I'm going to do them my own way. Like, and it didn't work most of the time.
Yeah.
I was too much for something, or just, you know, we think he's great, but we're going in the opposite direction. Like, I heard that so many times. He's very interesting, but you know, it's not this. And you just have to kind of go, okay. And so the temptation is always, well, what do they want then? And become that. And I'm going, no one answers that question for you. That's the truth of the matter, is that no one tells you exactly what they want, because they don't know what they want until it shows up and fully inhabits what they're doing. Whoever makes that script come alive and allows for the page to disappear in how they're doing it, it's a convincing job. If you convince me that you're actually going through what you're going through in the thing, that's how you speak. The words that were all put together, that's actually the way. If you put all your energy into doing a convincing job, you know what I mean, with your world picture and your instincts and impulses and experience all informing that take, then you're doing your job. But when you take yourself out of the equation because you think that it's not interesting, or that it's not enough, or that it's boring, or that, of course you're bored with yourself. I'm bored with myself. I think I'm tragically boring. I've spent every day with myself. No one's more bored of themselves than yourself. Think about it. You know what I mean? Like, so get over it and get to work, but I'm like, just remember that for everybody but you, the way you do things and the way you come at things is different. And in that difference, there is a magnetism, because people are like, whoa, that's the way. Okay. Interesting.
Love it.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite role you've originated, favorite time on set, favorite memory on stage, anything like that?
I do. I have all those things. My fail. God, it's so hard to answer these things out loud, because you feel like, you're kind of going like, well, the others didn't count. But I was like, the ones that, it's when you leave the job or the experience of performing and it's still vibrating and you kind of go, something, I just grew. You know what I mean? Like, my skin feels like it's stretched a bit. Like, where something actually changes you. That's how I'm coming up with the things that I was lucky enough. So TV, I was lucky enough to be cast as a recurring guest on a show called Mary Kills People, season 2. And I got to play a character all the way through the season who was dying, and who knew he was dying. From finding out that he had a stage 4 glioblastoma, through to choosing to end his own life on his own terms. And we shot it chronologically, which is also very rare. So I got to live with the role for a bit, and worked with great writers, a great production company, a great director. Everyone who was working on it cared about what they were doing and did their job beautifully. And I got to see this character through, and my last night of filming my last scene was my death. And we had blocked it, and it was supposed to go a certain way. And I had the courage, or I felt compelled to say to the director, who's an amazing director with like way more experience directing than I have acting. But I felt bold enough to say to him, I think we have this in reverse. I think we need to show me arriving to the stage where I take my life, because he decides to make a performance out of his transition. So he invites all his friends. They recite poetry and kind of, all dressed in white, and there's flowers everywhere. And he drinks the pentobarbital and like beautifully passes away on this gorgeous bed that is made of flowers. Like he was a designer in life, and he wants to make his death a performance. That's in a nutshell the story. And so I was like, the procession to the stage needs to be part of it. And that was not part of the shot list. That was not necessarily in the script. It just kind of said that I showed up and they were already there. And I was like, we were shooting in the woods, and I was like, there's something here. Like, let's get all those people lining the path that's right over there, and let's actually, and he kind of went, I mean, yeah, it's a great idea, but we don't have time, like, rightly so. But I felt really compelled, and I haven't really said something that extreme or suggested something that extreme before, as to suggest to a director a whole new shot that doesn't exist. But for some reason, I felt very passionate about it, and I was like, because this whole thing has been a journey, we have to show a bit of the journey. And he was just kind of like, okay, all right, let's do it. Let's just do it. But just know, it's fucked up what you're asking, because like, it's not at all what we're set up for. To his credit, I didn't demand it. I didn't whatever. I just suggested it, and I kind of pitched it. And he did on the dinner break. He reconfigured everything and created this beautiful shot, which he and I both know wouldn't have existed had that conversation just between he and I, after doing a blocking or a rehearsal before dinner break of what was the original scene. It was completely changed around between that rehearsal for camera and what happened after dinner. He and I both know that it came about from true collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that, number one, when I got to perform that walk, it was like, yeah, I have got goose pimples. I will never forget that, because I was like, wow, to have that kind of artistic collaboration in this setting, I feel like I'm finally owning my imagination and risking sharing it with someone. Because the fear is that they're always going to go, who do you think you are? And he didn't. And so when I got to finally see it, it was during an ADR session. I walked in, and I remember the technicians in the ADR session were like, wait till you see this. They didn't know any of the story. They were just like, we were all crying when we were setting up the wipes. I was like, oh. And I watched it, and I just bawled my eyes out, just me in this booth. And I was like, because I was like, only he and I know, and that would never exist had that conversation never happened. And it's like, and that is two people not playing how they're supposed to behave with each other, but actually going, I see an artist in you, and you see an artist in me. So we're going to risk rubbing up against each other's, stepping on each other's toes, rubbing up against each other's processes for the sake of the thing, and going, let's create something. And it energized the whole thing. And it's on my demo reel. It's the last shot in my demo reel. I'm most proud of that. And I don't say a single line in it. I'm just walking, but I'm like, to me, it was like a thing where I just went, wow, there is room for collaboration if you come at it from the right place. If you're not flexing, you know what I mean? Like an ego muscle, and you're not trying to like put someone in their place, anything like that, self-aggrandizing. If the intention is pure, if it's all about the thing, you can still collaborate, and kind of step out of each other's positions and kind of create something. So that's I'm most proud of that scene, particularly Mary Kills People.
I love it.
On stage, I got to play a role named Leo for a few years at Tarragon Theater around like 2006 to 2008. And I toured Canada with that play. But I never left the stage. It was the first time I ever played a titular character. So I played Leo in Leo, and I got to really grow with that role. And I became aware of what the power was of just standing on a stage and like, being in your truth and just letting stuff kind of come out as it appeared inside of you without worrying about how it was going to be perceived, of just actually, allowing yourself to be raw and open and not putting something on. I learned that in that production. So that's the other one. That's my most favorite.
Do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up?
That acting right there, Janet, that's hilarious. Like anything coming. That was amazing. That was so good. I can't wink either. My winking was that was my eye.
Can't do it.
Medical reason for that, doctor?
Yeah, we're just really intelligent.
That's total bullshit. That was a good acting job.
Yeah.
What am I? Well, we had whatever. I have to tell the viewers we had a little pre-chat about this, you and I, because we know each other from before and whatever, and we had to have a little kind of. I am very excited to take on the role of Scar in the upcoming production of The Lion King, which is happening at the Princess of Wales Theatre, starting November 2024. This came out of nowhere. Truly, like one of the biggest things ever for me, on so many levels, but the most important being that I never even allowed myself to wish for it. I really just I did not think it was a possibility. And I engaged in those numerous auditions, always going, I'm never going to book this, but show up to the experience and like just enjoy the story you're going to be able to tell when you're like, I once auditioned for the Lion Show. And then of course I got cut or something, but like I just kept going, don't start congesting your impulses with an expectation of how it's supposed to be or that it's ever, just like enjoy the fact that you're doing something that you've never done before. I've never done a musical before. To be doing one at the age of 49, and like I had never even seen The Lion King when I auditioned. So all of it was so new, and I came into it with just like zero expectations of anything coming through. And so getting cast literally brought me to my knees. I got the message and I just fell to my knees. I was there with my very dear friend, Paula Brancati. We were in the elevator. I checked my message and I just like got to my knees and started bawling my eyes out because I was just like, anything can happen. Like I was like, I still can't believe I'm doing it. I should say, I'm in Brooklyn, New York right now, on my end. And the reason I'm here is because I went to go see the production on Broadway for the first time, my first time ever seeing the live production, and got to meet the person his name is Stephen Carlisle, who's been playing Scar for 7 years here, and talk to him for an hour after the show in the house about the role and the whatever. Like it's been a very magical trip, but it's all made it feel very real. And it's like I was saying to my buddy Paula, what's shifted on this trip is I'm no longer scared about taking it on. And I'm just fucking excited because being able to sit in that house, in that audience before the show and listen to the excitement and feel the vibration of everyone there who just wants to be told the story and that they've come there to be transported. I was like, I will remember this, and this will be my North Star for my performances, is going, I'm never going to forget what's out there, and be like, do your job. And your job is to elevate that story, pump blood and life and breath into it, and try to change them, let them. So yeah, That's what I'm doing. I can't believe I'm doing it. I cannot believe I am doing it. It's crazy. No one is more surprised than me. Nobody. No one. No one. Like I can barely say it with a straight face. You know? I know. I know.
I'm so thrilled for you. Like,
Thank you.
and what a fascinating conversation to have had with Stephen Carlisle is his name. And
Yeah, Stephen Carlisle, yeah.
to be this character who everyone hates because you ruined a lot of people's childhoods. But to be able to embody that, like, was a conversation like that? I know I'm keeping you forever, but like,
No, I love this.
was that conversation
Good luck editing it all. I'm gonna have to ask that question again because I just talked over you. But I'm like, good luck editing this because we can go on forever. It'll be 15 episodes. It's gonna be suggested.
fucking fascinating human being on the planet.
Start it again. I'm not gonna interrupt.
Well, I'm yammering on, but it's basically like to have a conversation with someone who and to play the most iconic villain that right now I think about, like, who's gonna come see this show, right? It's people, it's everyone, obviously, but like my age have now children, and so like we were traumatized by The Lion King and love it so much. Like, you ask anyone of like the elder millennial generation, it's like The Lion King was formative, and now they're bringing their kids to this. Like, how do you take on a villain character like this, and what are you looking forward to?
We did discuss this.
Cool.
We did discuss this. Absolutely.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah. Oh, so, and I have to tell you this. He was in the middle of a 2-show day. So when I was having this discussion, he gave me his entire break, number one. But I was having this discussion. If you go to my Instagram, Salvatore Antonio official, IG, you'll see a photo of us that's taken in the high. Oh, yeah. Oh, feeling makeup and Anya.
Clock that.
Oh, yeah, because it's in the middle of 2-show turn-in.
It's like,
No. I kept saying to him, Stephen, you need your break. You've got a show. Like, and he was just like, no, I'm really enjoying this. And I was like, such a generous, lovely, lovely man on top of being so talented. But like, no, he's sitting there with his face on because he's got to do another show after our conversation. Spoke for over an hour. Anyways, we were talking about the character and we talked about this very thing and going, you cannot think about that character as evil in order to play him. Because the fact of the matter is like, why were you or anybody who watched it as a kid? I watched it as an adult. I only watched it for the first time a couple months ago, the movie. Why were you traumatized? Because you learned about death.
Mm-hmm.
You learned that there are bad people in the world. You learned that the parental relationship will end.
Mm.
You learned about tragedy. And you learned about the deterioration of the ideal state.
Yep.
And you learned about corruption of power.
Mm.
So you weren't traumatized by Scar. You were traumatized by everything that Scar represents. And going back to the original part of our conversation, which is about storytelling, that's an important story to tell. And to spare those elements of that story when you're talking about the circle of life is to cheat the audience out of the most enduring and effective part of that story. And so to me, in order to play Scar, and you have to understand, I'm already biased because I only ever saw Scar once I knew I was playing him. Like I didn't grow up watching it. So in order to play Scar, I'm not playing someone who's evil. I'm playing someone who's doing the best he can given his circumstances and his level of education and emotional ability. His name is Scar. He is scarred. He wears his scars on the outside. And so everywhere he goes, it is a declaration of his weakness, of how he is compromised, and how he is less than perfect. He also, because of lineage and societal hierarchy, whatever, is relegated to the shadow of someone who is the exact opposite, who is seen as benevolent, perfect, robust, healthy, perfect family situation. And so what it does is it feeds all his feelings of lack of worth, of lack of future, of promise. Of, oh my God, I just look at myself. I'm starting to become him just talking about it. But it's like, so I'm like, Scar doesn't have therapy. You know what I mean? Scar doesn't have a friend.
Yeah.
So Scar, to me, is not evil. He's wounded.
Mm-hmm.
And he acts very badly because of that. And that does not say that I'm okay with it, but I'm not going to be playing someone who's evil. I'm going to be playing someone who's wicked. Because, and you just gave the reaction right there when I differentiated those words. Wicked is something that you can go on the ride with.
Yes.
You can be like, what an asshole, and smile through, like, oh my God, he's so bad. You can enjoy wicked. You cannot enjoy evil.
Yeah.
And so my job is to hold an audience and endear an audience to me and kind of be like, I think he says it in his later song in The Madness of King Scar in the musical. He says, nobody loved me. There's the rub. Not even as a cub. That's a direct quote. He starts that song off by saying, Zazu, why does nobody love me? He literally, those are his lines. That for me is the cornerstone of the character. This is the same person who sent his brother to death and tried to kill his nephew. And I'm going, it's the glaring lack of love and feeling wanted and whatever. What is more human than that? It's just the play, the story takes it to an extreme. And the character that I'm going to be playing is someone who does not have anything else available to him to show him another option other than to feed vengeance and revenge and ill feelings and jealousy. And that's just the way that story goes. But I will not play evil. I'm not interested in playing evil, but I will definitely enjoy playing wicked. That just sounds like the quintessential little button line, but I will enjoy playing wicked, but I should change it and be like, but I'm not doing wicked. Just the whole clear. I'm doing the line. I'm doing the Lion King.
I'm not putting green paint in my face. See?
Rod, no. So it's just a tall order that I've just described. I'm really looking forward to figuring it all out and trusting this process is what I've never been in. I've never done all these things that I'm about to start doing. And rather than being freaked out about it, which I was before this visit, for this trip, is I'm now going to be excited to be like, I am going to learn some dance numbers and I am going to figure out how to use the costume and I am going to sing a song with an orchestra and I am going to do it 8 times a week for close to 3,000 people a night. And we're just going to embrace all that and go, how blessed am I to have the opportunity to learn something new on this scale at this age after all the shit that, that I've been through and almost taking myself out of the running. It's, I'm not going to cry. But yeah, that it makes me emotional when I get to say that out loud that way. And this is the first time I have. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We could go on forever.
I know. I was like, I think this is the perfect place to click stop because I'm like, I'm getting emotional.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Scar, for being my guest this week. Everyone, when we had our conversation, they were in New York, and they had just spent time with the Broadway actor who plays Scar. They went down to New York and had a conversation. I love that. I love that. Like, actors helping actors is just so cool. Salvatore's story is one that makes me quite emotional, and you heard us get emotional. I'm 99.9% sure the first time I see this incredible human being in person will be when I witness them on stage as Scar, and I'm going to get emotional. I'm going to cry. If you're in the Toronto area and you love The Lion King, as you should, as a true millennial, did it traumatize you? It traumatized me growing up. Go see Salvatore Antonio in the role of Scar. Cheer, cry, celebrate your fellow second act actor, human beings. What an incredible story they have. Thank you again, Salvatore, for being my guest. And I hope you all will tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.